Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jason Walker one more time with Jay Walker Buzz, where we talk to interesting people about interesting things and about interesting manifestations that build up the culture. That's what we're about, ladies and gentlemen. I gotta say big respect to the buzzers, the buzzies, and the buzzettes, because you know, Massive and Crew, you make us who we are. And this is Jay Walker Buzz. And today we have a special audience in the building. We have a true son of Jamaica, don't care what I'm saying. He has contributed so much to Jamaica when it comes to education, upliftment, carrying on the Garvey legacy throughout the years. First time I ever heard his name was about Garvey, and that was years ago, and he's still doing it to this day. That, of course, is President Stephen Golding of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, of course, founded by Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And, of course, we are talking about the movie named after my son, Mosiah. And we have the star of that movie, Samuel Fudge, just joking, named after Marcus Mosiah Garvey, as my son is. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be informing you about how the President Golding has been part of creating this movie and bringing it to the diaspora, starting in Florida and then going to Georgia and wherever else. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only superstar actor, Samuel Fudge, and the absolutely powerful, amazing President Stephen Golding. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
How you doing, Jason? Thanks for having us. I want to say big up to your listeners. How you doing, Sam?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here. You know, always an honor to speak on Garvey. You know, in this one. So it's an honor.
Samuel, something going on with your connection. So while you check on that, President Golding, you're going to have the Mosiah movie. It's going to be in Miami, in Miramar, South Florida, on the 18th. That's it's coming up fast. And then it's going to be in Atlanta, 25th of March, if I understand correctly, which is an anniversary date when it comes to Marcus. But let's talk about just putting together the movie. Why the movie? Why now?
Well, let me correct you. You know, I really didn't have much to do with the creation of the film. All that credit goes to Sam, who is not only the actor who portrays Garvey, but also the writer of the film. And he has a wonderful team behind him, the director Gerard, who I've met and traveled with to show the film, Alima, the other producer. They put this thing together, they funded it out of their own pocket.
Wow.
It's a 40-minute short film. It's played at several film festivals between October of 2023 and up to the end of last year, 2024. So they've done the film circuit for a little over a year. They've won some of the festivals. The film has recently been picked up by Amazon Prime. I came on board before they started to put it out there. Several members of the UNIA, including myself, they reached out to us to sort of proof the film in terms of our knowledge of the history. We made our critiques, our recommendations were taken. And some of the first places that the film was shown was at UNIA divisions across the United States, like in Detroit and in Chicago and other places. When we got involved was as a result of including it in what we began at the beginning of last year, which is the Global Garvey Symposium series, which brought us to Atlanta on March 17th. The Garvey Symposium series are premised on places that Marcus Garvey spoke at,
right,
and on the anniversary of the dates that he spoke. So, you know, He spoke in Atlanta on March 25th, 1917, one of his first big public lectures in the United States, after being there for just, a little under a year. We did the first one in Atlanta last year. It went very well supported by the Jamaican community. This year, we're going to be installing a plaque, a historical marker attesting to the fact that Garvey spoke there on that date. And so because we've been doing them all over the world, the first one was in Atlanta, the first one was in Western Jamaica in Lucy, Hanover, where he spoke in 1916. Atlanta was the second one. We did one in Harlem on May 9th last year. And then in October of last year, we did several of them throughout the Caribbean because, in 1937, Garvey did his final tour of the Caribbean, traveling by ship. And each island that he stopped at, he gave lectures and public addresses. So we went to St. Lucia, we went to Barbados, we went to St. Vincent, we went to Trinidad. And it was at that point that we began to include the screening of the film as a part of those symposiums. And they really married well. And it gave the filmmakers an opportunity to get the film out there, particularly to the Caribbean. I mean, Garvey, belongs to the world, but he was a born Jamaican, and more particularly, he really was a Caribbean icon because the UNIA was not powered solely by Jamaicans, but it was powered very strongly by West Indians in the United States of that time. So, Garvey had officers from Antigua, from Barbados, from Bermuda, from Trinidad, from St. Kitts. And so it was a good opportunity for us to get the film out there, supported by the grassroots organizations, the Garveyites in those countries. And they were also able to use it as a sort of sounding board, a testing board, to see how this film would be received by the Caribbean population. And I must say, Jason, it was well received. And so it was no surprise. We did the final screening for the Caribbean in Guyana just 2 weekends ago. Before that, it was Suriname. And earlier this year in January, we did a second screening in Jamaica in Montego Bay at the second annual Western Jamaica Marcus Garvey Symposium. And it was the day after that the pardon of Garvey was announced by Biden. And it was around that same weekend too that the director informed us that Amazon had picked up the film. So a lot of things have been happening in rapid succession, attesting to the success of the film. And so we want to recognize Sam for a tremendous project, a great delivery, and it's picking up momentum. We're already in discussion with people to fund a second film on Garvey. The idea is no one film can do Garvey justice. Amen. And so even though this started as a short film, 40 minutes, we are now looking at it as the first episode of a series of films, and so we hope to make, 10, maybe 12 more to complete that series.
He said 10 or 12. Now, the reason I even heard about this was from the Consul General Oliver Mayer, and of course Oliver Mayer is pushing for the one, is the patron for the one that's going to happen in South Florida. Now, there was a big celebration here around the pardon. Our Consul General led that for the Southeast. Tell us about how you felt, because I know every Garveyite has been demanding the pardon since, them railroad us in the beginning. How did it feel when you got it?
Well, Garvey has been demanding the pardon since he was in prison. That effort was begun by him himself. Right. And people must remember, this is the second pardon Garvey's been issued. The first one wasn't a full and unconditional pardon. It was a executive grant of clemency in the form of a commutation of his sentence. Garvey was sentenced to 5 years. He didn't serve 3. He served about 2 3/4 before President Calvin Coolidge put his signature to have Garvey pardoned. So this is Garvey's second presidential pardon. And I want to emphasize that because Garvey even went before a parole board while he was incarcerated and parole was denied. So it took a president in 1927 for him to be released from prison. Of course, the caveat in that commutation was immediate deportation. But even after that, Garvey continually sought to have his record expunged. He sought his own exoneration. And so my response when the pardon came out, and some people might have took it harshly, I didn't walk it back because it's really how I felt, but I described it as a cosmetic victory. Cosmetic victory. Not saying that we don't welcome it, It brings the issue back into the limelight. It puts it hopefully back on the agenda of Congress. But we've said for a number of years that U.S. presidents cannot exonerate people, right? Exonerations can only happen through the courts, like in the case of DNA, evidence being able to be used. But in the case of a case like this, where all the people involved in the case are deceased and the case cannot be tried over and people can be interviewed and no new evidence is going to be introduced, it would take an act of the Congress. And this is one of the things that I think Jamaica has led the way in sort of setting a roadmap for the U.S. Congress to now follow, because, our own parliament, I believe in 2018, passed legislation expunging not only Garvey's record and exonerating him, but all of our national heroes and other freedom fighters who had been charged with crimes and convicted by the colonial government. We did that unanimously, bipartisanly. Across the aisle in our parliament, everybody voted for that. That act was carried, and so we expunged Garvey's record ourselves, because people forget that he was charged with a crime, contempt of court in Jamaica in 1929, and served 3 months in DP, district prison, or the Spanish Town prison, as Jamaicans will know, right? Prison oval. And so that came up in pursuit of the exoneration from the U.S. government, because we had to stop and say, well, how can we be asking them to do this when we ourselves have him on record and we haven't cleaned it up? So it provided an opportunity for us to set the record straight and set an example. And U.S. Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, who is leading the charge along with other members of the Congressional Black Caucus, and who are working closely with Dr. Julius Garvey, is aware of this, and they're continuing to pursue it. But let's not forget, that Harlem Congressman Charlie Rangel put it before the Congress in 1980, around 87, around the same time as the centennial celebrations of Garvey's birth. And it was boxed around till it fell off the table some 10, 20 years later. And so now it has to be put back on the agenda. I'm not sure that we have a House of Representatives or a Senate that would be, open to voting for this or dealing with it. But nonetheless, we have to continue to try. It is not impossible. Remember, at one time, presidents didn't even offer posthumous pardons,
Right. And
the first one that was done for a black man by the name of Henry Ocean Flipper, the first black Buffalo soldier the first black man to graduate from West Point and to become an officer with the Buffalo Soldiers, who was set up to make it look like he stole from the commissary and dishonorably discharged. Right? He was one of the first people to get a posthumous pardon. So Marcus Garvey, if that be the case, can certainly be the first person to be exonerated by the United States Congress. He certainly, his figure is large enough to warrant such an action. And going by the words I've been on programs with Congresswoman Clarke, and she has said they're continuing to pursue this. So we will continue to support them in that effort.
Absolutely excellent. Absolutely excellent. And so all the buzzers, buzzies and buzzets in the U.S., here, if Yvette gets it into the Congress, let's advocate, support, make that movement to actually completely exonerate Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Now, the man of the hour, the star, the writer, the man who pulled off this amazing feat, Samuel. Why don't you get up and take your time to go do this? Samuel, can you hear me?
Say it again.
What made you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What
Can you
made
hear
you
me?
decide to put this together, to make this happen?
Oh man, first most I wanted to utilize my. You guys can hear me? I'm good.
Yes, can hear you now.
I'm a little delayed. First off, I just wanted to utilize my education on the legacy of Marcus Garvey and further push his ideologies and methods out to the world, and more specific into the United States. During the time that this film was created, we were going through a very tough time in the United States as far as the social climate was concerned. We went through the deaths of George Floyd. We had Ahmaud Arbery. And we had so many other police brutality deaths here in the United States. And it stems back from way before I was born, way in time, right? And so me just wanting to have a voice to contribute to the change, I wanted to utilize the voice of Marcus Garvey to, one, fuel our people into pushing for change, but also fuel our people into thinking better about how we conduct our affairs as Black people. I got tired of watching us fight for our voice. I got tired of watching us beg for our voice in the States. I got tired of watching us plead. I got tired of us playing secondary and further down of as far as being socially considered inferior to other cultures here in the United States. I wanted to uplift our people and take a stance. And I wanted the voice of Marcus Garvey to do that. And me being an artist, whether it been me writing the script, but also portraying Garvey, I wanted to make sure that the messages of Marcus Garvey was effective as possible. And me being able to have somewhat of control in that, it was an honor to do so. But the biggest thing is we need it. We needed it then at the time that the film was created, and we still need it now. We are right now in 2025 talking about this film, but I guarantee now people will be talking about this film, and people will look towards this film for answers. So why? Man, because we needed it. The country needed it. The world needs it,
Now, in terms of the process of creating the film, what was that like? I know I haven't heard the film yet, but how did you get like a voice coach? Garvey's speech pattern is very distinct. How did you do that?
Yeah, doing as much research as I could. Thankfully, I had plenty training in acting, and I'd say a genre acting I appreciate most is Shakespearean. The reason why I appreciate Shakespearean acting is because you're forced to study the words. You're forced to break down language, and you're able to use a person's words to dictate or to formulate who this person is as an individual. The words that we use, the things that we say, tells a huge part of who we are. And so I definitely use from my tool palette of Shakespeare, but doing my heavy research, connecting to Jamaicans, more importantly, trying to get that language down, but also understanding that, Garvey was a universal leader. And so he used this language, and he was a master, a wordsmith. He used this language to connect Blacks all over the world. So knowing how to play on the different dialects and play on the different accents for different scenes and different scenarios, and utilizing my Shakespeare training and fully discovering who this person was through his words. Garvey was a very bold, blunt individual, a strong man who said what he meant and meant what he said. And if he didn't, or if he had any fear or any timidness towards his ideas, he wouldn't be saying things. He wouldn't be saying the things that he said. You're talking about the 1920s and the 1910s and America. You understand what I'm saying? We're still talking about lynching. We're talking about Jim Crow time. We're talking about all these things, and here it is, a Black man telling Black people that, hey, you are beautiful, uplift yourself, you are powerful. In fact, you are a powerful race. In fact, you're the most powerful race here on earth. And so these things tell you who he is. And so you can't walk timid into a situation after having saying those type of words. You can't be soft voiced when saying these type of things, man. And so I pulled from a lot of resources, honestly, to nail this, not even a character, to nail the most honorable Marcus Garvey. I knew that people all over the world would take this serious. I knew it wouldn't be taken lightly. Like you mentioned before, man, there's Garveyites all over the world. And what I'm learning, thankfully, through this film, what I'm learning about Garveyites, we all think that we're the biggest and strongest Garveyite. We all take pride in saying that. I know I'm the biggest. So I knew that this film would be observed on a large scale and with a magnifying glass. So I wanted to do my due diligence and making sure that my portrayal was effective, but also appreciated. And used as a resource for youth, Black youth all over the world to go to and reference and find motivation from.
Now, what area of his life does the movie cover?
Centrally, we center everything around the trial here in the United States of the bogus mail fraud charge, which I say proudly. Now, before, when I would say that, people would say, well, according to, but thanks to the pardon by Joe Biden, I think that's a true testament of proof of the innocence of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, but also details from the trial. We use details from the transcripts of the trial to prove our point, but nice. we center it around there because here in the United States, as you know, this is what a lot of people know as, or this is what a lot of people consider as the downfall, or I'd say the decline of the movement of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. And so I wanted to start there to retell this narrative and to also re-educate our people, retell a narrative of one guilty of this crime. This is bogus. It's fraud. Here's the evidence hands through the script. So I wanted to take. Yeah, you can hear me?
It was going in and out. So the last couple lines didn't come through.
I wanted to take the trial in my own hands and retell history. I wanted to re-educate our people. I wanted to educate our youth. I wanted to tell the truth within this court case. And so that's why we start there. And we use flashbacks going back to his time in the St. Ann's Bay. We use flashbacks of his time in the United States leading up into the trial. But everything is centered around this trial. To me, it's metaphorically and symbolic to the perspective of the United States of the most honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey.
Yeah, and I do believe that was the first high-profile case that J. Edgar Hoover did. Did corrupt movements. It was literally the beginning of him going after our people in a very way.
Yeah, he got his career off of falsifying the charge on the most honorable. Yeah.
And he developed the counterintelligence program he used later during the Black Power era.
Exactly.
That all began with Garvey. The infiltration, the dissemination of false news and correspondence, the spies. I mean, the first Black man hired by the FBI, James Wormley Jones, was hired to infiltrate the Garvey movement.
So it's interesting. Things we're dealing with today can point right back to them. So tell me something, Sam. What was the reaction like at the festivals as you started presenting the movie? What kind of feedback were you getting?
Oh man, it depends on the audience. Like Stephen mentioned, while we toured in the Caribbean, people loved it. People were appreciative. This was especially for people of our generation. This is they saw it as a remembrance of Marcus Garvey, but also as a us Garveyites, we would love to have been, especially us younger ones, we would love to have been in those times and had to and to have experienced the energy, to have experienced this movement. And so for a lot of people, this film was a reboot of the movement, so people took it as if it was as if it was a trophy, award. People were very, very proud of this project. What was most important is the people who didn't know who Marcus Garvey was prior to this film.
In the Caribbean?
No, I'm sorry, not in the Caribbean. No, of course not. Well, here in the States, a lot of people was unaware of who Marcus Garvey was, and it still blows my mind. We talk about the first to do it to a mass scale, and there's no comparison. Like I have conversations with people all the time, like, yes, we love Martin Luther King. Yes, we love Malcolm X, but we're talking about a leader who's proclaimed to be a leader of every single Black person across the world. That's no comparison to that. And so we had to educate a lot of people.
And he didn't have TV, barely had radio, and he still was
No.
able to pull it off.
No radio.
Right.
Still pull it off. No Instagram, no social media, no Snapchat, no TikTok, no nothing. We're talking about his words, his voice, who he was, the work that he put in, the footsteps that he put in. I salute Stephen Golden because, like he mentioned, he's all over with this film, pushing this film. And I was fortunate enough to be with him in Jamaica. But after Jamaica, I told him I was tired, brother. This is just one stop. He's still going all over the country, the world, showing this film. And so I compare him to a Garvey. I'm like, and so I just say that to say the work that it took. And we're talking about a person who went from Jamaica to Central America,
Costa Rica, Panama,
and to go to the States and still create this mass movement in the time frame that he did it. So it blows my mind. How don't you know who Marcus Garvey is? And so what my job is as an artist is to teach you who Marcus Garvey is. My job is to educate you. We all have our gifts in life, and God has blessed me to be very gifted at the power of acting and very gifted at the power of writing. And I have to use that as my contribution to push the legacy of Marcus Garvey. And everything is aligning accordingly, because here I am with the honorable Stephen Golding talking about Marcus Garvey. You know what I mean? So, yeah, man, I say all that to say it was received and perceived very well. And I'm grateful and blessed. And that's a testament of God's doing it, but also Marcus Garvey's doing it, because it could have went in a different way, but to now be a voice of our people in the fashion that I do it in, it's huge.
You were talking about the movie Messiah, put together and written, starred by the one and only Samuel Fudge. Of course, Florida is going to get to see it. Atlanta is going to get to see it. Florida in February, Atlanta in March. But one of the biggest things, which is why it's so perfect that President Golding is here, is Garvey's legacy with Universal Negro Improvement. Tell us, in this 2025 President Golding, how do you see Marcus's legacy? How is the UNIA doing its thing in this era? Especially like, Mr. Fudge just said, there's so many movements to erase the history.
First, let me add to what Sam was saying by emphasizing that this is the first narrative film done on Garvey. This is the first movie done on Marcus Garvey.
Wow.
There have been films done that parody Garvey that don't use his name, right? But they try to tell the story and in a derogatory way to paint him as a charlatan. One came out in 1932 called The Black King. There have been documentaries on Marcus Garvey, a number of them coming up to our time to sort of repair that image. But this is the first time we've had actors and actresses portraying Garvey, portraying Amy Jakes, portraying Henrietta Vinton Davis, portraying even James Wormley Jones, to tell the story of Garvey. And it's amazing for such a large man that it has taken 100 years for a film to be done on him. It really raises an eyebrow as to why this wasn't done before. And maybe it is that things don't happen until the time that they're supposed to happen. Garvey himself said that when he was gone, he would return to look for him all around you in the whirlwind and the storm, and that he would write the history that would inspire the millions who come after him, and the world would hear from his principles even 100 years hence. Very prophetic statement. But in terms of the Garvey movement and what Garvey set out to do 100 years ago, we are only just now seeing some of those things come to fruition. So as much as it took 100 years for a movie to be made, it also took 100 years for the United Nations to organize a permanent forum for people of African descent. It took 100 years for the August 31st that Garvey declared in 1920 should be an international day for the race. In 1920, It took 101 years for the UN in 2021 to declare August 31st as the International Day for People of African Descent. And I say all this to show that the things Garvey was advocating for and the mechanisms that he was creating and trying to put in place, he was so far ahead of his time that it took us, the world, a century to catch up. And so we see those things happening, particularly at the international level. With the Permanent Forum for People of African Descent. I was at their third session in Geneva, Switzerland last April. And when I spoke there, I spoke to remind them that everything they were about and everything that they were trying to do, Marcus Garvey had beat them to it 100 years before, and that he himself had even visited Geneva in 1928 and again in 1931, advocating for Black people, and even on issues such as apartheid in South Africa, which in his time was brand new legislation made to disenfranchise the Black South Africans. So when I say this man is iconic, Jason, when I say this is a man who is only 5 feet 4 inches tall, but who looms as a giant in the annals of history and in terms of his role in advocacy for the rights of African descendants. Garvey took the issue of the Black man and the Black woman from a civil rights issue to a human rights issue, right? He declared a declaration of rights for our people 2 decades plus before the UN felt that it was necessary to have a universal declaration of human rights. They did that in 1947, but in 1920, Garvey declared the Declaration of Rights of the Negro people of the world. So, you know, we use phrases like ahead of his time, punches way above his weight, or even in Jamaica, sayings like little but with tallow. Garvey embodies all of that. In fact, I would say he is the definition of those very statements. A man far, far ahead of his time, and a man who addressed our issues in such a way that when we examine his teachings, his writings, his speeches, we will see that those issues that Garvey was grappling with and trying to overcome, some of them are still issues our people have to this day. And it is why the martyrdom of somebody like George Floyd could have, you know, set off a powder keg in the Black world and with which reverbed around the world. And so, as Sam says, that this film is kind of like a jump start to the movement again, re-energizing, reinvigorating it. That's exactly what we see on the global stage in the past 3, 4, 5 years. It's so funny, you know, we're just out of a COVID pandemic. But in Garvey's time in 1918, there was also an influenza pandemic, which he emerged out of and for which he created auxiliaries like the Black Cross nurses and so forth. So it's almost, like history repeating itself. It's the same sort of environment, the same sort of circumstances that Garvey rose up out of are the same situations we face today. And out of it came somebody like a Samuel Lee Fudge. Out of it came a film like Mosiah. And out of that has come the energy to sort of reinvigorate the remaining divisions and chapters of the UNIA around the world. Because one thing about Garvey's movement was very much a spiritual movement. And so even though they targeted the head and the leader to suppress him, to oppress him, and, eventually to put him in the grave, his movement could not be stopped. And so there are divisions of the UNIA still throughout the United States, in Central America, in the Caribbean. There are divisions on the continent of Africa, in London and in Europe. And we are awakening, and we are beginning now to remind the world that our esteemed leader predicted these things, advocated for these things, and gave us a black print, not a blueprint, a black print for the solution. And so much of the work is left to be done, and the mission is left to be completed. And that's what we are about.
We're talking about the movie Messiah. And of course, interestingly, Marcus never actually got to go to Africa, even though he pointed to Africa. That being
No,
said,
but
the
Amy Ashwood and Amy
UNIA,
Jakes did.
but his legacy and UNIA is all over Africa. His words, his leadership, everything is still about Africa. That being said, looking at Samuel, you could see the shape of Marcus's face just looking at Samuel. Right, you see it, right, President Gordon?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Now you understand what he said, that in death I will be a terror to the foes, right? And I would never desert you. So look for me, because I will be right there around you. And I think Sam embodies that and represents that to the maximum. While he was in Jamaica, I took him to the shrine of Garvey at our Heroes Park, where his body is entombed. And he stood up by Garvey's tomb in a sort of meditative state for a few minutes, till I had to call to him like, "Hey Sam, we have other things to do."
Please tell me you took that picture. President Golding, please tell me you took that.
Oh, yes. A beautiful picture with the bust of Garvey right above his head. And when you look at it, I will send that to you.
I need it. I absolutely need it. So Samuel, and President Golding is correct. There's never really been a serious broadcast in this medium of the great leader. I remember Delroy Lindo was talking a long time about doing a Garvey film. Don't know why that never came together, but I'm hearing conversations about you even bringing it to Amazon. Tell us about that. That's these whole new streaming platform things. Very interesting because the public don't fully understand. Explain the Amazon situation.
Yeah, so right now the film Mosiah is on Amazon Prime Video. You could just go on Amazon Prime Video if you have the app on a TV, or even if you're on your computer. You can search Mosiah and it'll come up. To rent, I believe it's $2.99. To purchase, $10. Of course, you want to purchase a film like this so you can play it as many times as you need to. And you can also share that way as well.
Tab, we seem to be losing you right now.
I think when you rent, you have maybe 24 or 48 hours.
Now we're hearing,
and not because of that's what we want. That's just how Amazon Prime runs. It's themovie.com. There, you can hear me. We're good.
Okay, we can hear you. We hear you now. So that was a breakdown. You rent it $2.99, purchase it $10. Yeah. Sam is encouraging people to purchase it. That way you can watch the anytime you want. You can also share with other people. I don't know if you can share the details of this, but I assume you get a piece of anything that occurs with it on Amazon. Am I correct?
Say it again. I couldn't hear you. I'm sorry, brother.
I'm assuming you get a piece of whatever happens on Amazon, whether people rent it or buy it. As you are the writer and creator of the film, you get a piece of this, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir. Most importantly, the funds go into us recreating, to recycle. To recycle those funds, and use into the next project, so we can continue to give the world this message. And this, it's our way of exercising Garveyism and Black dollars going towards Black cause. To educate our Black people. And so and going back to the point of Amazon Prime and all these streaming services. It'll force for us and allows for us to reach a mass scale of people in a short matter of time without so much footwork. You guys are watching over in Jamaica, but there's somebody right now that's watching it in a whole nother country, and there's many people watching it, I'm sure, right now in the United States. And so it allows for us to push this message and push this movement rapidly, but yes, in support, the funds in this project does go towards the next project, so we can continue to push Garvey, but also create. As Stephen mentioned, we created this film with our own monies. We didn't have major backing, we didn't have major studios, we didn't have, and going to the point of why this probably wasn't done before is because because of the not support of major studios and major backings. And so we did this with our own money, and to continue to create, we need help from our people to continuously create, and to push more messages. So we can give you the part 2 through 12, like Steve mentioned.
And how fitting is it, Jason, that for somebody who pushed Black empowerment and that we should do for ourselves, buy Black, support Black, that it took Black people coming together to make that film. And so again, that's why I say the spirit of Garvey looms large in this project. And so even going forward, our first engagement with funders to do more have been with Black financiers and even Jamaican financiers. So, I definitely believe that Garvey has a hand in how this is playing out, so that it remains true to his principles and what he advocated for in terms of Black empowerment and Black economic self-reliance.
Well, I do know Oliver, the Consul General Oliver Mayer, who's a patron for the one in Florida, got Blue Moho Capital to sponsor that event.
Yes, we are in dialogue with David Mullings. Sam and I sat down with him here in Jamaica, out of which came the sponsorship first of the screening of the film. But I have to big up the CG to Oliver Mayer. This is the 3rd or 4th time I will be coming up for his annual Black History Month event, which is always entitled Celebrating Garvey and Reggae. And so the screening of the film becomes a feature of the event this year, but this is not his first rodeo. The Consul General has been very supportive of things Garvey, even in establishing this annual event, which is now in its 4th or 5th rendition. And so we were very happy for the opportunity. And when we said it to him, it was a no-brainer. Of course, the film had to be screened at that annual event at the MIRAMAR Cultural Center.
And of course, for those who don't know, Marcus Garvey is the topic of a large percentage of reggae songs. So it makes sense that we celebrate Garvey and reggae together.
I just did a post today, Jason, reminding people that, Reggae Month, as the Jamaican government declared it in 2008, is only 17 years old this year. Black History Month is 55 years old, having, started in 1970 at Kent State University. But of course, it was derived from what was originally Negro History Week,
right,
which started in 1926. So is this year 99 years old. And that was founded by Dr. Carter G. Woodson, who at the time worked for Marcus Garvey as a writer for the Negro World and his daily Negro Times, right? And was very much influenced by Garveyism and the teachings of Garvey, or as it was called in that day, the New Negro Movement. And so I want Jamaicans to understand that Black History Month, even though it has been sort of endorsed officially by the United States of America, really belongs to all of us as Africans in the diaspora, and that it is very connected to the work of our own first national hero while he was in the United States, the establishment of a Negro History Week, because it was meant to repair the narrative. Right before Marcus Garvey, there were very few leaders talking about the history of Africans before slavery. It was Garvey who began to connect us to the great civilizations of Egypt and Timbuktu and the empires of Ethiopia and Kush and Mali and so forth. Before that, as Martin Luther King said, we were robbed of our language, robbed of our culture, robbed of our history. And some of us, by the way we acted, it seems we were robbed of our very minds. And so Garveyism is very much about reparation in the form of restoring and repairing the narrative so that we have something uplifting to pass on to our generations and our posterity, to empower them to know their rightful place on the global stage as the founders of those great civilizations, as descendants of the creators of arts and sciences. You know, these are the things Garvey waxed eloquently about. Even while he was in prison, writing one of his greatest pieces in 1925 entitled African Fundamentalism, where he connects all of those dots as regards the true history of Africans.
You see why he's the president of UNIA. That being said, correct, President Gold, absolutely correct. So Sam, you are definitely taking on one of the most important individuals, leaders, change makers, disruptors, whatever you want to choose in history, period. Yes. That's who you have taken on. Mm-hmm. And I agree with President Golden. If you can have 20, if you can have 20 James Bond, you can have 40 Marcus Garvey movies. So
listen, that's who's taken upon me. That's who's taken upon me, brother.
So I you know what? You said something to me before this started. Mm-hmm. Where you recognize every Garveyite is so bold.
Yeah.
You are bold. Clearly, you are a Garveyite. Because to even decide to take this on, I'm very proud of you, sir. Like, that's amazing. No. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard they're talking how it works. It's literally a Garvey principle. Black people, support the man, and the man comes back and he's able to support you by being able to create more works. And like, trust me, there's no way this is going to move forward without the pairing of the UNIA, which means that we're going to be creating a foundation and a building and a manifestation and a platform that's not dependent on country. It's worldwide. Mm-hmm. And this is a great opportunity to have a Black Star Liner situation through this movement. Everybody plug in, everybody put in, and everything gets built up because of what everybody put in. And I did not ask even what I just said. I just listened to what a man said, and it's just logical. So Sam, as a man, you're based in Georgia, correct?
Yes, sir.
So you're based in the United States. In a time when everybody erasing the history, how do you feel about rolling out this vision as we have just discussed? When we have a president that don't even recognize this month as the month that it is. How do you feel as a man who comes from the United States and based here about doing what you're doing, which will shatter what is being pushed right now?
I mean, honestly, man, I feel like I'm very grateful for the times that we are in right now. I think it forces us to look at ourselves and look at each other. Look at investing into ourselves, into investing into answers that resolve issues that our communities face. It forces us to dig back deep into our own selves. I love it. I don't think it should take a month for us to go back and dig into our history. I think this is something that we need to do every single day. I think that it shouldn't take the month of February for people to be proud, Black people to be proud of who we are. I think this is something we need to do every single day, every month, every week, every year. This is what we need to be teaching our Black kids in our schools. This is what we need to be teaching our children in our households. It shouldn't take the month of February to do that. You know what I mean? And so I'm grateful of the times that we're in now, because now I'm seeing a push. I'm seeing a burst of energy that I hadn't seen before. I'm seeing us solely relying on ourselves and looking at ourselves for the answers and for the solutions of our problems. I think that, my personal opinion, I think that we need to invest more into our Black businesses. We need our dollars to circulate. We need our own. We need our own government. We need our own laws. We need our own communities. We need our own education. We need our own medical hospitals. We need our own, everything that Garvey did and everything that Garvey said And that's what we need to go back to. So honestly speaking, I see a shift and change of energy. I see us slowly now having these conversations. I see us slowly looking at ourselves like, damn, now I'm sorry for saying that word, but I see us now like, okay, what about us? And I love the feeling of us saying to the country, what about us? Because with what about us comes answers, and it comes self-determination, it comes self-resilience. It comes with all these things that will ultimately get us to the promised land. That's the Black Star Line in 2025 is us coming together and enriching this idea of us bringing it back home and prioritizing ourselves and making sure we are good. We can't depend on a leader, especially a leader who is not of our own. We can't depend on him to dictate our future. We can't depend on a system that wasn't created for us to dictate our futures. We have to do it ourselves. And with this film, with this movement, with this burst of rejuvenated energy, with the social climate, I think Garvey is in the whirlwind, man, and he's creating it for us, and he's pushing us towards it. And I'm just grateful and glad to be. Grateful and glad to be able to contribute in the way that I can through my art. But it's bigger than myself. I feel the shift. I see the shift. And I'm just grateful, brother. But it's time for us to now invest and to cultivate our own. Now we've built a society for everybody else. It's now time for us to enrich our own.
Like that Kendrick Lamar piece where they had all the black men bending over and then the American flag came up. So yes, black people build this country. Remember that.
Yeah, absolutely.
President Golding, I've been blessed to hear you when you've made speeches, see you on TV, hear your talks. You've been doing this a long time. I don't know what it is. Something about this, Samuel said it himself. There's a shift. Do you also feel a shift, President Golding?
I think Sam added to what I was saying earlier that, it's funny, the circumstances in the last couple of years mirrored those at the start of Garvey's movement, even the very pandemic itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the terms of the political climate in the United States now, it is fast mirroring the situation that Black people were facing at the turn of the 20th century during Garvey's time, and what propelled him to resonate with the people in terms of his advocacy for self-determination, for collective security, and for economic empowerment through our unity. And so I agree with Sam in terms of the fact that maybe it is not such a bad thing. In the reggae songs that you talk about where Garvey looms large in terms of the lyrics, remember there's a song that talks about the black man and when his back will be against the wall, right? Swallowfield shall be the battlefield, right?
Yes.
And that is very much, I think, could be the case. I'm disturbed by what I see from the current president and from people like Elon Musk. I mean, just today I was looking at the fact that President Trump has signed to freeze aid to South Africa. Elon Musk himself being a South African, and remember I mentioned earlier that the issue facing the black people in South Africa was one that Garvey carried to the League of Nations himself, advocating for them to look into it.
And Musk's family benefited from what Garvey was fighting out against, was speaking out.
Exactly. But let us hope that this will give us the impetus to do the things that Garvey advocated for us to do and encourage us to do, and the things that we failed to do at the time that he was pushing us in that direction. We certainly dropped the ball and let him down. But maybe given the current situation, circumstances and conditions and climate that we see coming fast at the world since the start of this year and the new presidency of the United States of America, maybe this will be the impetus for us to pick up back the Garvey ball and to carry it all the way to the goal line this time.
At least score the goal. or at least score the goal and lift up the championship cup. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our star, Samuel Fudge, our amazing President Golding, Stephen Golding, going to be part of the 4th annual celebration of Garvey and reggae, courtesy of the Council General of Jamaica, Oliver Mayer, in association with another Jamaican commissioner, Maxwell B. Chambers, presenting this great movie starting off in Florida, Tuesday, 18th of February. Doors open at 6:30. I won't say what time the movie starts. I'm just going to say doors open at 6:30. All right? Miramar Cultural Center, 2400 Civic Center Place, Miramar, Florida, 33025. And you need to go to Eventbrite at garveyreggae2025.eventbrite.com. Register. Come on in. Get through. Sam, you'll be there, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
President Golding, you'll be there.
I will be there. Sam will be at the one in Atlanta. I think you're talking about the one in Miramar on Tuesday.
Oh,
the one in Atlanta
okay.
will be the 2nd annual Marcus Garvey Symposium, where we will be joined by our own ambassador, Her Excellency Audrey Marks, the Honorable Audrey Marks, OJ now. And we will be unveiling a plaque at the oldest African church in Atlanta, where Garvey spoke on March 25th, 1917. We'll also be screening the film there. Sam is going to make a special appearance and a special presentation there. So we're reaching back out to the Atlanta family to come out for that one. It's Tuesday, March 25th. Try to get there by 5:30 so that we can begin at 6 o'clock. But certainly in Miramar on Tuesday, as Jason just said, there's going to be a lot to unpack. I'm coming with the fire as I usually do. And I'm going to expound on what the film doesn't touch on in terms of the frame up of Marcus Garvey, the chronology of action taken against Garvey long before the mail fraud, and the reason why we need to continue to press for the exoneration.
And as you say, history repeats itself. And as Garvey said, if you don't know your history, you're like a tree without roots. You need to listen to President Golding when he comes. Yes. Because President Golding, when him say bring the fire, the man, him really bring the fire. Like, one reason President Golding, this is probably one of the first times we ever connected. Because I say, yo, I've come right when they talk to President Golding because you're the man what time for the radio show, and you're like, yo. And Sam, I don't know if you met his wife. It's like, because the whole family is like them to talk about bull, like kick down the door waving the 4-4.
Oh yeah, definitely. They're like my family now too, man. I love the Golden. Stephen to tell you, knows, man. I love them dearly. They're like my second family now. When I first met his daughter, who's so gifted and so intelligent at the age that she is, she saw me and she's like, man, you look like Marcus Garvey. And the first thing I wanted to say is like, how you know about Marcus Garvey? But of course, you're a Golden. I know that's how you know Marcus Garvey. But yes, I love the Goldens, man. Definitely.
Florida, that's the first opportunity to meet the great President Golding. Great opportunity. And by the way, President Golding, I spoke to some Black-run organizations from other countries, from Haiti, from Guyana, from Suriname. I told them you're going to be here next week, so they're going to be coming to meet you. So this is a great opportunity. In this time, when there's such an attack, it's time for us to get up and get bold. It's time for us to get up and unite and collaborate. Instead of, we need to create our own system, like Sam said.
Yes. And just to veggie back, we don't piggyback, just to veggie back on what you were saying, Jason, in terms of supporting this. And I want to say this particularly to those in Atlanta, that we're still looking for sponsors for the event on March 25th. They can get in touch with the Atlanta Jamaica Association. Look for them online, atlantajamaica.association.org. We have packages of bulk tickets that we hope people will purchase in advance, whether 10, whether 25, whether 50. Because, you know, there's a cost to putting on these events, so we're hoping that people will support in earnest. The tickets are $20 if you buy them in bulk in advance. Otherwise, they're going to be $30 at the door on the night. So I want to encourage everybody, get in touch with the AJA in Atlanta. Take out a sponsorship, whether red, black, or green sponsorship packages that we have. Tell a friend, bring the family, buy tickets for your staff. Sponsor a school of students, of teachers, sponsor your community organizations, come out in your numbers. Our ambassador is going to be there. Sam is going to be there. It's not only going to be a screening, but an unveiling, and just on display the Jamaican culture and our love for Marcus Garvey.
Excellent. All right. So it's going to be a big diaspora movement. We're going to do Florida in February, Miramar, February 18th at the Miramar Cultural Center. And then 25th of March, Atlanta. And
Big Bethel AME Church.
At AME Church. And like the president said, support, 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 support. Is there a website for the one in Atlanta that you know of?
Yes, they can get the information at the Atlanta Jamaica Association.org, the AJA website. The tickets are available on Ticket Tailor. Of course, we want everybody to follow at UNIA Jamaica on social media. You can remember that one easy, UNIA Jamaica, spelled out, one word. And you can get information about the various screenings there as well.
Excellent. All right, cool. So, gentlemen, I want to thank you again for what you're doing. I want to thank you for choosing one of the most amazing people when I was 4, when I was between 3 and 4. My grandfather started talking to me about Marcus Garvey. And it was already a blessing for me because it was obvious to me by the shape of the coins. Marcus Garvey had the most unique shaped coin. It was only 50 cents, but it was the most unique shape of all of the coin them. And so it already stood out to me as a little boy. And my grandfather drilled into me the importance of Marcus Garvey. So for me, which is why I named my son Messiah. So this is really important to me, guys. So I want to thank you so much. And this, ladies and gentlemen, buzzies, buzzettes, buzzers, let's take the opportunity to really build this Black Star lineup style into the 20 movies from here on in.
Yes.
President
21st Century Black Star Line movement. Thanks for having us, Jason. Love to you, my brother. Thanks for the support. It's so funny you mentioned the money because even with the new currency, the new paper money out there, Marcus Garvey is still the only hero who appears on a bill by himself. On a new $100 bill. So, you know, like you said, the coin was for a generation, but as each generation comes, Garvey still has a prominent place in that generation. So one love, my brother. Thank you.
One love. And this is another episode of J. Walker Buzz. President Goling, Big Man Samuel Fudge, we're out.